here, you see the shares higher by about 6% in the after-hours trade.
Okay, that's Cadence Design. We got our eyes out for Whirlpool. We're expecting them to report in just a few minutes. In the meantime, let's take a look at some decliners in today's trade. I want to start with Open Door. And before, Romain, you give me a hard time about choosing this one. It was the most actively traded stock today.
Yeah, I know, Tim.
Okay.
You get a pass. It's a
all right.
stock.
I got to come with, ammo to back up my choices here. 7.9% to the downside here. The company's postponing a shareholder vote on a reverse stock split after a recent run-up in the company's shares. Remember, it had scheduled this meeting due to a notification from NASDAQ that it could be delisted for failing to maintain a stock price of $1 or more. That was then. This is now. Shares are now above $2 per share. The recent volatility, though, in the company's stock price led the board to delay the vote on the stock split proposal. Still, the stock fell today, 7.9%. And Gilead shares fell as analysts noted a potential risk to the company's HIV preventative franchise after Robert F. Kennedy, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, had been reporting to plan the dismissal of an advisory panel that determines what preventative health measures insurers must cover. Shares fell 2.7% today. RFK Jr. plans to dismiss all 16 panel members of the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force because he views them as too, quote, woke, according to the Wall Street Journal, citing people familiar with the matter. And finally, Duolingo.
What? They were what?
Too woke, according to the Wall Street Journal. This is, I'm quoting the journal's reporting here. Finally, Duolingo down 6.
Did they define that?
They did not.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry to say.
All right.
Moving on to Duolingo, shares down 6.5% today. Citizens out with a note that said it was cautious on the company's upcoming results. The company said third-party data suggests engagement slowed since April. The analyst Andrew Boone adds that slowing growth raises the question of whether Duolingo's total addressable market is saturated. They did lower the price target to $450 from $475. The company is reporting results for the second quarter just in a couple of weeks, August 6th. Next week, actually, August 6th.
All right, let's take a quick check in yields here. Not a whole lot of action going on there on the shorter end of the curve. Really no movement at all. But once again, you do see yields tick higher on the longer end of the curve. 3 basis points on your 20-year and your 30-year. So a steepening, Scarlett, of the yield curve.
And we just have Whirlpool results crossing. Net sales for the second quarter are $3.77 billion, missing the average analyst estimate of $3.85 billion. Second quarter ongoing EPS of $1.34, also missing the consensus estimate of $1.61. As for the outlook, Whirlpool sees full year cash from operating activities of about $850 million. It has kept its full year revenue outlook intact, about $15.8 billion. Analysts were looking for about $15.64 billion, and it sees free cash flow for the full year of $400 million, whereas previously it had seen $500 to $600 million. Tim?
Some notable commentary from Andrew Bitzer, somebody who's pretty candid. We've spoken to him quite a bit over the last few years. He's this chairman and CEO. He said, as expected, the second quarter continued to be impacted by competitors stockpiling Asian imports into the U.S. Despite this, we're well positioned in North America with a robust pipeline of new products, the industry's leading U.S. manufacturing footprint, and favorable housing demand fundamentals. He says they're confident in the long-term strategy, and he says that evolving tariff policies will ultimately support domestic manufacturers. A reminder that their U.S.-bound products are made here in the United States, the majority of them.
And you do wonder about some pull forward, maybe still impacting some of these companies in terms of competition. I also will draw your attention to a story that's among the most read on the Bloomberg about the U.S. housing market posting their worst spring selling season in 13 years. So if people aren't buying new homes, finding new homes, not buying new appliances, like all of this certainly has an impact.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a lot here. I mean, this is more a business that is probably less affected by tariffs and more by just the general cycles that we're seeing in the housing market, which, of course, to some extent are also tied to economic conditions and, of course, tariffs. I do also want to point out, too, I know you guys have talked to him a lot, and I know they like to tout the idea of most of their stuff being made here in the U.S., at least the stuff they sell here. But there's still a lot of components that go into that that does have tariff exposure. Not quite sure how they quantify that, but definitely something that you have to keep.
What about the materials that they use, like the raw materials? And that are being tariffed right now.
Absolutely. Yeah,
this idea of being confident in their long-term strategy, but the evolving tariff policies really leaves them without a lot of control in a lot of situations. They kind of have to passively take it in and adjust as needed.
Sounds like a lot of questions for them on the upcoming call with analysts and investors. Stock still down about 6.2%. We're talking about Whirlpool.
markets are going up or down, it's when there's activity, volume, transactions, repositioning. Because of the nature of our markets businesses, we see those flows and we see that activity. So a very robust, strong business model with that subscription revenue that's growing well, and then the revenue that's associated with the market. So we refer to our business model as an all-weather model because it tends to work in all environments.
But so far, since the release of your results, the markets haven't quite liked what they've heard, though. The stock is down, I think, around 7% as we speak right now. Why do you think that is? Is there an issue perhaps with growth?
So we have a metric that we call annualized subscription value growth. And we track that. And when we put that out for this half year, it's down a little bit. And we've talked about what that is driven by. And we have had a very modest number of cancellations and a couple other things in the second quarter that took that down a little bit. And over the last few years, it's been going up, 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 up. And so I think the market is looking at that. We have always told the market that they shouldn't focus too much on this metric because it's very sensitive. We see our sales pipeline growing. We see lots of new product coming to market. The business is doing very well across all of our different businesses. So we have a lot of confidence in the direction of travel for this business. But there's a little bit of sensitivity around that.
Let's focus a bit more on the business that perhaps most people know you for, the London Stock Exchange itself. It's fair to say that you're struggling to attract companies. I think the number of listings is at a 30-year low. Why do you think that is?
I think a couple things around this. First of all, the number of listings on a global basis has declined. And if you look in New York, for example, the number of listings is down by 40% over the last, I don't know what the right time, 10 years or so. Listings in other geographic centers have been a real challenge. And that, I think, is in part due to the geopolitical environment over the last several years. It's also because of the availability of private capital. And you can grow into a very large company fully on the backing of private capital. And that has been just a major driver of growth for companies, really going back the last 15 years or so. On top of that, we have had a lot of changes in the UK over the last several years in terms of modernizing and reforming the listings regime here. To be fair, if you go back a few years, there were some rules that were probably overly conservative, that hadn't really moved along with how markets were operating around the world. And these related to things like dual-class share structures. There were approaches to having a very high free float requirement, where if companies could become very large companies because of the availability of private capital, and then when they go public, you tell them they have to have a very large free float, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So we've changed those kinds of things, and we have changed, for example, some of the conditions in terms of getting into the FTSE index, all these different aspects have been viewed as very attractive and helpful. So we are now actually seeing a growing pipeline and a growing number of companies looking to list here, including as soon as next week. So that has been a bit of a challenge over the last few years, getting much better.
But New York has seen a surge in listings in 2025. Recently we found out that the UK online payment company Wise is moving its listing from London to New York. How can you compete globally against these other big houses?
So there are many companies where it does not make sense for them to list or go to New York.
And but Wise is a UK online payment company.
But let me just give you a couple of statistics around this, because over the last 10 years, 20 companies or so have gone from the UK and listed in New York and raised over $100 million. Okay, of that 20, 3 of them, their stock is trading up. Another aspect of some of the challenges of going to New York, a lot of companies, if they're not above a certain size and have I'll say a particularly hot story, they get lost in the U.S. capital markets in New York. They don't get the right attention from investors, from research analysts. And so we've had conversations with companies like that who are actually looking for an environment where they will get the appropriate attention.
Stick around. Much more Ask for a Trend still to come.
Students in the San Bernardino East.
Why do you think so many political debates are spotlighting charisma over policy? I feel like it's always a battle of zingers.
You know, I don't know if it really is figures like Trump. It's Trump, right? I mean, previous presidents have had plenty of critics that they disliked. If they saw them on TV, it annoyed them. They didn't engage, not because they weren't ruthless, not because they weren't willing to do what it takes, because they thought it would lower them and it would lower the office of the presidency. Trump obviously doesn't feel that way. If somebody wants to pick a fight, as was just said, he's going to play right into their hands and he's going to make them the star of the headline because he can't help himself. And when he sees some criticism on TV, when he sees something negative about himself on Fox, he's mad because why isn't Fox 100% supportive? Why is it only 98% supportive? He doesn't have the self-control.
Mike, Christina, Tiffany, and Ramesh, thank you, and stick around. Coming up on our last call, Major League Baseball's first game ever in Tennessee on a NASCAR track, but how the rubber met the road at this event, which has critics comparing it to Fyre Fest. Our panel weighs in on how the Speedway Classic spun out.
The news never stops.
From Tampa, we are here tonight as Hurricane Milton has just made landfall.
The surge just keeps coming up.
Right on the border between Ukraine and Russia.
We're in artillery position about 2 miles away from Gaza.
And ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
We're not far from where this rally took place, so just stick with us here.
Traveling with the president to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Here in London today.
Off the coast of Gaza.
Downtown Tel Aviv, rockets or missiles coming in.
From the most devastating disaster in Hawaii. Some areas are still smoldering.
Wherever the story.
From the front lines, the ruins of Rafah.
From the FBI.
Reporting from Capitol Hill.
In western Portugal. Outside of Mexico City.
In Iceland. Let's go.
here in France.
The eclipse across America.
Just stunning.
Unbelievable.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is, we're going to take you there.
You're streaming
ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere because the news never stops.
Get this, people. Now we're streaming every weekend right to you.
With an all-new show, an all-new View, special for the weekends. Now you can catch The View 7 days a week.
I wonder if you can handle it. It's the Weekend View.
The Weekend View.
It's the Weekend View. Streaming on ABC News Live, wherever you stream. Take a little time to enjoy the Weekend View.
See you on the weekend! Now streaming Saturdays and Sundays on ABC News Live, wherever you stream.
We're back, baby.
Yes.
I'm so excited to be here. We actually watch you every night. You're in our bedroom every night.
The feud gets wild.
Come on. Grandma, he smells really good.
Weird.
Are you ready for this?
Take two. And famously funny. Name something your mate's booty has in common with the basketball.
It bounces.
Celebrity Family Feud. New Thursday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Texas. Weirdo.
Have things changed here more than we thought?
I cannot believe they're allowing it openly in the streets.
Fake sport, man.
This is crazy. Do not just stand there. Give me a Xanax.
I'm going to go in and buy a spanner wrench. I don't need one, but I have to calm down.
ABC News Live.
Because the news never stops.
All right, you hear that bell? It's time now for our last call. Some Major League Baseball fans crying foul, lobbying some jeers, and even comparisons to Fyre Fest after the first baseball game ever played on a NASCAR track. The Atlanta Braves taking on the Cincinnati Reds at the MLB's first Speedway Classic over the weekend, hosted at the Bristol Motor Speedway in Tennessee. 90,000 people were expected to attend, marking a record-setting attendance for an MLB game, but some fans expressing disappointment after the game, which was postponed until Sunday after just one inning due to weather. Now, feels somewhat short of their expectations, apparently. Now, some of those fans reporting paying $350 for parking and the concession stands running out of food, serving hot dogs without buns and nachos without cheese. Yeah, let's bring in our panel back. Mike, is this a good idea gone wrong here as sports leagues continue to push the envelope at bigger venues?
Absolutely. The industrial engineer in me is flabbergasted at the logistics and operations of this. The idea that they knew how many attendees were going to be there due to ticket sales. You should be able to adjust your supply chain to get the right amount of food. You should have it down to a science in terms of how long does it take the fans to receive food from the concession stand. It's just such a logistical nightmare, and I cannot believe the MLB allowed that such failure to happen. And those hot dogs, doesn't even look appealing at all. No bun. It looks undercooked. And those nacho chips with no cheese, no way. No way.
Hot dog, no bun. Ham, no burger. What's going on right now? Christina, you're in Texas. What's the penalty there for serving naked nachos?
I mean, it should be a felony if you ask me. Dry corn chips. I mean, look, this is compared to Fyre Festival. That was just one crazy guy leading. This is the MLB. They are a real institution. There's no excuse for running such a poor event. And I think they owe a lot of those fans either some kind of return on their tickets or something for the future, because it's just totally unacceptable, I think, to do these to so many fans.
Ramesh, what's your take on how this went down?
Two things. First, they do need to do refunds and do better next time. Two, a nacho without cheese is not a nacho. So we just the terminology needs to be corrected here.
And Tiffany, do you like hot dogs without buns? What do you think? What's your take on what happened here?
I like my hot dogs with buns. You know, I had high hopes.
than advertising or kind of a news clip on Friday, and I was very intrigued by this. But yeah, I can't do a hot dog with no bun and no cheese on my nachos. They should have been prepared for the rain delay, and it's clear that baseball is trying to innovate and bring in more fans, which is a good thing. But it seems like they have some work to do.
All right, Christina, we're talking about innovation here. What's another venue you can see MLB testing out to see if they can expand their reach?
You're asking me. I'm not the person to ask. All I know is that you have to be able to have food. Do you know how expensive those nachos and hot dogs are at an event like this? And then to have them half served. Food's a fundamental, parking's a fundamental. People have to have a good time. I'm wondering how many fans are going to want to come back to an event like this if this is their delivery on their first big event like this.
Yeah, it's not looking good. And Mike, what do you think? I want to take this to you, all right? So should the MLB and other sports leagues be expanding their reach maybe to other countries, looking at other big venues across the pond somewhere? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I love it when sports grow into other countries. I think that's phenomenal, right? But in terms of other venues, I don't know what other venues could hold the size of a baseball diamond. Maybe Central Park, that could be fun. I think that would be an unusual kind of event. I'm really big. University of Michigan, we have some really interesting ice hockey competitions. We play Michigan State. It's in the big house, so it's outdoors in the wintertime, so it's wonderful like that. But I think sometimes leave the classic alone. It's take me out to the ball game, take me out to the park for a reason. I want the Cracker Jacks, right?
Wow, the Cracker
and
Jacks.
the peanuts. Yeah,
we're going to share some
singing
snacks.
There with the melody.
Yeah, we'll share some snacks at a game one of these days, Mike. And that is our last call for this half hour. Mike, Christina, Tiffany, and Ramesh, thank you as always. And thank you for streaming with us. I'm Mike Ajachi. Follow ABC News Live wherever you stream live news. Coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern, be sure to catch ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis for the day's biggest stories and the impact they have on you. More news up next.
This ship collected specimens from distant planets. Monsters.
FX's Alien Earth premieres August 12th on FX, Hulu, and Hulu on Disney+.
All across America.
Good morning.
Hello. Wherever we are.
It's good to be home.
It feels like home.
When's the last time we dropped our things and went? Woke up somewhere that we've both never been. Growing up doesn't mean
Good morning. How are you? At the start of the day, letting us into your home. Putting the good in your morning.
Man, it's good to be home.
GMA. It's an invitation to come together. Brighten your morning.
I'm George. How are you?
And the day ahead.
Now you can listen to a podcast version of World News Tonight, available free wherever you listen.
A deadly mystery.
There was speculation that he got eaten by an alligator.
Forbidden love.
It involved decadent sexual behavior.
And then,
this is where the good stuff starts.
Mr. and Mrs. Murder, only on Hulu.
Reporting from Dallas, Texas on Election Day, I'm John Quinones. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, Texas standoff. Dozens of Texas Democrats leave the state in order to block a vote on redrawn congressional maps that could give Republicans 5 new seats ahead of next year's midterms.
I'm Mireya Villarreal in Austin at the state capitol with more details on the deadline that Governor Abbott has set for Democrats to return to the state immediately and what will happen if they don't.
Plus, we'll talk to Texas Democrat Jasmine Crockett and California Republican Kevin Kiley. Wildfire smoke sweeps across the Great Lakes into the Northeast, triggering air quality warnings, while heavy rains and flash flood threats continue in the Southeast. This is extreme heat and dry conditions raise the danger of fire out west. Ginger Z has the details. Devastating images. Hamas releases video of emaciated hostages in Gaza, raising the pressure on Israel for a ceasefire.
I'm in panel in Tel Aviv with reaction from the families of hostages seen in those videos.
And home ownership, it's part of the American dream, but with that role comes a responsibility many dread: property taxes. In tonight's Prime Focus, ABC investigates a nationwide pattern of highballed tax assessments when property tax bills are disproportionately high in majority non-white neighborhoods, so much so that it could leave homeowners homeless.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. They say everything is bigger in Texas, and we begin this Monday night with the Texas-sized showdown over congressional maps and the implications this is already having across the country. Dozens of Democratic state legislators have left the state, denying Republicans a quorum to pass redistricting legislation that typically takes place after the census each decade. Late today, Governor Greg Abbott said that he has ordered the arrest of those Democrats until all return to the Texas state capitol in Austin. All this comes after President Trump asked Republicans weeks ago to help the GOP pick up 5 more seats in Congress, triggering this battle over redistricting. And today, Democratic governors in California and New York threatened if the Texas maps go through, there would be a response. We're standing by to be joined by Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, whose seat might be in jeopardy under this new map. Our Maria Villarreal in Texas. But first, Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl leads us off.
Tonight, the governor of Texas is threatening to arrest any Democratic lawmaker who has left the state, as dozens have, to avoid voting on new congressional maps designed to favor Republicans. I ordered the Texas Department of Safety to locate, arrest, and return to the House chamber any member who has abandoned their duty to Texans. Governor Abbott declared in a statement, this order will remain in effect until all missing Democrat House members are accounted for and brought to the Texas Capitol. Until at least some of the Texas Democrats return to the state, there won't be a quorum in the State House, and a vote on the new congressional districts can't go forward.
Members, a quorum is not present.
Republicans voted to issue civil arrest warrants to bring the Democrats back to the Capitol. But those warrants have no power outside of the state of Texas. More than 50 of the Democratic lawmakers have left, some to Illinois, others to New York and Massachusetts.
We just arrived here in Chicago.
I made it safely to Chicago.
We are breaking quorum.
My Democratic colleagues and I have just left our beloved state to break quorum and stop Trump's redistricting power grab.
Republicans are seeking to redraw the state's congressional districts in a way that could help Republicans win 5 extra House seats in next year's midterm elections. The move was demanded by President Trump, who is eager to preserve the narrow Republican majority in Congress.
On Texas, how many more seats do you want the Republicans to draw?
5.
Are you calling in for a complete redrawing of the congressional map?
No, it's just a very simple redrawing. We pick up 5 seats.
Although Democrats have also skewed congressional district maps to favor their party in states they control, redistricting usually only happens after a new once-a-decade census. Now the Democratic governors of California and New York are threatening to change their congressional districts to retaliate against Texas.
And we're going to fight fire with fire.
Then they're leaving us no choice. We must do the same. John Karl joins us now from the White House. And John, some breaking news from the governor. More on that in a second. But first, this could be pricey for Democrats out of state. How much are they losing each day?
Well, every one of those Democrats faces, Lindsay, a $500.
ふるさと納税を始めるならサトフルで。ふるさと納税はサトフルで始めよう。
だから好きです。しゃぶしゃぶ温野菜。えりすぐりのお肉をね、新鮮なお野菜とさ、こだわりのお出汁で。美味しいよね。お鍋以外にもこんなに夏の銘柄豚しゃぶ、しゃぶしゃぶ温野菜。
Side of Texas. Doing so, he says, may be a violation of Texas bribery laws. So, bottom line, the governor clearly ratcheting up his efforts to try to force these Democrats, or at least some of them, to come back to the state.
Indeed. It seems like he is pushing all the pressure points. John Karl from the White House. Thanks so much, John. And for more on this now, we're joined by ABC's Maria Villarreal, who's tracking the latest developments for us from Austin, Texas. And Maria, I know you've been there at the Capitol all day today. What's the word now that these warrants have come out for the arrest of some of these Democratic leaders?
You know, I've spoken to at least two of them, one in Chicago and one in New York City. Both basically tell me that they are going to keep moving forward with the message here, which is basically they want to take a stand for people in their community, especially communities of color. In fact, right behind me, we have a rally going on actually in front of the governor's mansion to try and get the attention of not just the governor, but really Republicans that are here in the city of Austin and still planning to obviously be in the Capitol tomorrow, 1 p.m. when the House is gavelled in once again, Lindsay.
And this whole battle comes as we mark 1 month since those devastating floods in central Texas. Lawmakers were supposed to discuss disaster relief during this special session. Could this standoff further delay the recovery efforts?
100%. I mean, that is what a lot of people are talking about, not just here in Austin, but also in Kirk County, where the flooding happened and took the lives of more than 130 people. You know, I asked the two Democrats that I've been speaking with, the one in Chicago and New York, you know, how does this impact some of the bigger issues that you guys are supposed to be tackling? And they said, listen, we tried to ask Republicans early on to tackle the issue of flooding before we got into redistricting. Let's get the big stuff out of the way, and then let's see if we can compromise on redistricting. That was not a compromise that was met. And in fact, the first bill that made it to the floor of the House today was the redistricting. Democrats felt like they were being pushed to give a rubber stamp to the Trump administration. They weren't willing to do that, which is why they fled and obviously broke quorum. At this point in time, though, we know that the governor is not messing around. He has basically asked the Rangers to come in. Civil warrants have been issued. These Dems are not swayed right now. They basically say they're here for the long haul.
Maria Villarreal for us. Thanks so much. Joining us now for more is Texas Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Congresswoman, thank you so much as always for joining us. Governor Abbott just announced that he has ordered the Texas Department of Public Safety to find and arrest the House Democrats who have fled the state. You're in the Chicago area with some of those Democratic representatives. What's the plan with them? Obviously, at some point, you have to return to the state of Texas eventually. So ultimately, does it seem that it's a foregone conclusion that this bill will pass?
I don't say ultimately. I never say ultimately because I don't have a give up attitude whatsoever. But right now, the governor has decided that he wants to waste more of Texans' resources by deciding that he's going to send out the troopers.
今日これ皆さんこんにちは。今日これ日米銘柄チャンネル運営者のテックマネーです。
テックマネーさんこんにちは。今日もよろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。早速ですが、この動画では僕自身が銘柄購入の検討材料に作成した資料をもとに動画を作成しております。そして今回は自分が最も注目する企業の決算が発表されました。
なるほど。どんな銘柄ですか？
はい、本日は今まさに AI 時代の中心におごり出ようとしている大注目の企業パランティアテクノロジーズの2025第2四半期決算を速報でサマリーしていきます。
パランティア、よく聞く名前ですが、実は何をやっている会社なのかいまいちつかめていないんですよね。
そうなんですね。大丈夫です。まずは事業概要から簡単に説明しますね。パランティアは一言で言うと超巨大組織向けのデータ分析と AI ソリューション企業です。
ほうほう。
初手顧客は政府機関や軍、金融、医療といった非常に機密性の高いデータを扱う組織です。彼らが持つ膨大な情報をリアルタイムで解析して、より的確な意思決定ができるように支援しているんです。
なるほど、国家レベルのデータを扱っているんですね。それはすごい。強みは何になるんですか？
やはりその国家安全保障レベルの強固なセキュリティと AI 機械学習における最先端の技術力ですね。公共分野と民間分野の両方で確固たる実績を築いています。
まさに現代の頭脳集団という感じですね。
まさしく。そんなパランティアの今回の決算ですが、一言で言って記録的でした。 AI プラットフォームへの旺盛な需要を背景に、市場の予想を大きく上回る驚異的な成長を達成したんです。
記録的、それは気になりますね。
では主要なハイライトを見ていきましょう。まず驚異的な成長率からです。総収益は10億4万ドル。これは前年の同じ時期と比べてプラス 48% です。
プラス 48%、とんでもない伸び率じゃないですか？
そうなんです。中でも米国事業が全体を牽引していて、収益は7億3300万ドル、プラス 68% です。
68%？
さらに深掘りすると、米国事業の中でも商業部門の収益が3億6万ドルで、なんとプラス 93% という爆発的な成長を遂げています。
93%、ほぼ倍じゃないですか。今までは政府部門が強いイメージでしたけど、民間企業での導入がものすごい勢いで進んでいるんですね。
その通りです。まさにそこが今回の決算の最大の注目ポイントの一つです。政府部門もプラス 53% と非常に好調なんですが、それをはるかに上回る勢いです。顧客数も全体で前年から43% 増加しています。
うわー、なんだか数字のインパクトが強すぎて。契約の状況はどうなんですか？
将来の収益につながる契約状況も素晴らしい結果です。総契約額、いわゆる TCV は22億7000万ドルで、前年同期比でプラス 140% です。
140%？ これも倍以上。
はい、先ほど話した米国商業部門の TCV に至っては8億4300万ドルでプラス 222% です。
222%？ もう意味がわからない数字ですね。
魅力とも、米国商業部門の TCV に関しては157億ドル以上の大型契約も獲得しており、将来の収益基盤が盤石になっていることを示しています。
なるほど。成長性だけじゃなくて収益性はどうなんでしょうか？利益は出ているんですか？
もちろん出ています。そこも素晴らしいんですよ。ギャップベースの営業利益は2億6900万ドルで、利益率は 27%。 調整後の営業利益は4億6400万ドルで、利益率はなんと 46% です。
利益率 46%、 すごい高収益ですね。
そうなんです。そして成長率の 48% と、この調整後営業利益率の 46% を足すと 94% になります。これは 40% ルールという SaaS 企業の優秀さを示す指標をはるかに超えていて、パランティアが高成長と高収益を両立するトップクラスの企業であることを証明しています。
40% ルール、成長率と利益率を足して 40% を超えれば優秀とする指標ですね。それを倍以上クリアしていると。
その通りです。最終的な利益であるギャップ純利益も3億2700万ドルとしっかり黒字を確保しています。キャッシュフローも住宅でまさに飛ぶ鳥を落とす勢いです。
すごいとしか言いようがないですね。これだけ好調だと株価もかなり上がっているんじゃないですか？
お察しの通りです。2025 8月時点での株価指標の見てみましょう。まず PER 株価収益率ですが、約159倍です。
159倍、かなり高い水準ですよね。
非常に高いです。高い成長期待が織り込まれた典型的なテックグロース株の水準と言えます。 PBR 株価純資産倍率も約 49.9 倍と、こちらも高いですね。
なるほど。 ROE 株主資本利益率は？
こちらは 9% から 12% で、企業成長に伴って収益性が大幅に改善している最中ですね。あと短期的な過熱感を見る RSI ですが 64.25 と、買われすぎの目安である70に近づいています。
ということは短期的には少し警戒も必要かもしれないということですね。
そうですね。その点は注意が必要です。では次に会社が出している今後の見通し、ガイダンスを見てみましょう。当然ながら今回の好調な結果を受けて見通しを大幅に引き上げています。まず次の第3四半期ですが、収益は10億8300万ドルから10億8700万ドルを見込んでいます。そして通期の見通しですが、収益は41億4200万ドルから41億5000万ドルへと上方修正されました。
しっかりと上方修正してきたんですね。
はい、特に先ほどから注目している米国商業部門の収益は通期で13億200万ドル超え、成長 率 85% 以上を見込むという非常に強気な見通しに上方修正しています。
85% 成長を1年通して続ける見込み、すごい自信ですね。
調整後の営業利益やフリーキャッシュフローも上方修正されており、2025年の各四半期で引き続き黒字を見込んでいるとのことです。
素晴らしいですね。ではテックマネーさん、これらを踏まえてズバリ投資判断はどうなりますか？今パランティアに投資すべきなんでしょうか？
はい、そこが一番気になるところですよね。まず注目ポイントを整理します。一つ目はやはり米国商業部門の爆発的成長、前年同期比プラス 93% という数字は民間への AI 導入が本物であることを示しています。二つ目は先ほども出た驚異的な 40% ルール、成長と収益の両立は非常に魅力的です。そして三つ目が将来の収益基盤の強化、 TCV が倍増していることから将来の安定収益が急速に積み上がっていることがわかります。
なるほど、ポジティブな要素は満載ですね。逆に注意点やリスクはどうでしょうか？
はい、最大の注意点はやはり超高水準のバリュエーションです。株価は短期間で急騰しており、 PER などの指標は割高を取り越えた水準にあります。
ですよね。
そのため市場の期待値が非常に高いので、将来少しでも成長が鈍化した場合、株価が大きく下落するリスクがあります。また商業部門が急成長しているとはいえ、依然として売上の公共部門の比率が高い点もリスクとして挙げられます。
なるほどな。それを踏みるとどういう投資家にお勧めできますか？
はい、まずおすすめできるのは成長株への長期投資を前提とし、企業の未来を応援したい方、 AI や米国ハイテク株といった時代のメガトレンドに乗りたい方、そしてこれが重要です。株価の大きな変動、ボラティリティに耐性がある投資家の方ですね。3年から5年以上を前提に短期的な値動きに一喜一憂しない方にはおすすめです。逆におすすめしにくいのは短期的な株価の下落で精神的に不安になってしまう方、安定した配当や PER が低いバリュー株を好む方、そして長期的な成長ストーリーよりも四半期ごとの安定した実績を重視する方にはあまり向いていないかもしれません。
なるほど、非常にわかりやすいですね。自分の投資スタイルと照らし合わせて考えることが大事ですね。
まさにその通りです。最後にまとめですが、パランティアはまさに AI 時代の象徴的なグロース株と言えるでしょう。その技術力と市場でのポジショニングは次世代のテクノロジーに投資したいと考える人々にとって非常に魅力的です。
今日の話を聞いてそのポテンシャルの高さがよくわかりました。
一方でその急成長と高い期待は過熱感のある株価に反映されています。投資を検討する際はご自身のリスク許容度と投資期間を十分に考慮し、慎重に判断することが何よりも重要です。
はい、よく理解できました。今日も大変勉強になりました。
今回の動画はいかがでしたか？今回の動画が投資判断材料になれば幸いです。また今回の動画が参考になった、役に立ったと思われた方はぜひチャンネル登録と高評価をお願いいたします。動画作成のモチベーションにつながります。また取り上げてほしい銘柄などございましたらコメント欄に記載してください。
2回ショックがあったのね。ライブの時は1億円ちょっとなくなっちゃったもうこんなことないと思ってたらリーマンショックそこで5000だからみたいな。株のねちょっといいところは下がったらこれ上がるのよ。
そこで買い足すんですか？
買い足す。買い足すんですか？だって1000円が2000円になって大変なことだ。落ち切った100円が200円って簡単なの。倍だよ倍。確かに。イプシロンっていうロケット、ちょっとした制御ミスで飛ばなかったの。絶対上がると思った。イプシロン株がもうわーみたいな。売り抜け
マネースキルセット資産運用ヒュイゴー。じゃあやっぱりあれですか、こう今の流行りというか、こう一つの銘柄積み立ててとか、長期でとか、もうほったらかしでみたいなのってあんまり興味ないですか？
あんまりないかな。なんだろうな、一つの銘柄は怖いっていうのはちょっとやっぱり分かってくるわけよ。
一つの銘柄だけだと怖い。
一つの銘柄、時代のちょうどなんか乗ってる時にのがあんまりちょっと危険だなって分かったのが、ライブドアショックの時ね。
出た。
あれなんか IT 系みたいな会社が超良かったのよ。
そうですよね。その時なんてもう IT バブルというか、もうあの辺の軒並みもう登った。
20社中ね、15、6社は IT 系だったの、その時。
2000年代ですよね。
もう入ってる。
ですよね。
ずーっとやってて、調子いいから もうそっちがそのまましとくよね。売った後にまた上がっちゃうからさ。
もう何社も買ってたんですか IT 系。
IT で16ぐらい買ってたと。うわ、すごっ。そんなに。
でもそれが軒並み上がってるわけですよ。
軒並み上がってるから、もう売ろうっていう感覚ない。利益確定とかないの。確定で売った瞬間、まだ上がってんじゃんみたいな。なんだよ。
もっと待てないかったんだよ。
そう。だから売るという感覚がないんだ。
持っとけばいいんだ。
IT 系は持っとけばいいと思った。そしたらライブはショックで。普通だったらライブとあだけじゃ落ちるの。
確かに。
あれ全体落ち出したの。
Maybe
なってるのが、そういう。
Doors so they could escape. First
Is there anything, I know that you really orient yourself to the future. Is there anything about the past that you wish now that you could change? Something that you did or something that you didn't do, something that you said or something that you didn't say?
No, I'd say my only regret was I had total control of Lululemon 100%. It was a cash cow making a lot of money. I had 3 kids under the age of 2, and I wanted to be a family man. So I sold to private equity and didn't really realize after selling to private equity that, that people would, I was a very trusting type of person. And, it'll take us 5 years to go public. Well, we went public in a year. Everything that, they had promised me kind of flew out the window. And what really happened is I lost control of the board. And I didn't have A and B class shares, which I could have, easily asked for, and didn't know I didn't have the right advice, which is my fault. And so by not controlling the board, I lost the culture of Lululemon and the growth of where I think it should be.
So your big professional regret is selling to private equity guys and losing control of your board of directors.
No, my regret would more be like I didn't spend time developing relationships with advisors or calling people that had gone through the process before and really understanding, what it is I needed to do. I think I also had surrounded myself with advisors that were also very nice, trusting Canadians, and I think, it's just that private equity isn't set up to, to tell you the whole truth about what's going to happen 3 or 4 years down the road.
You felt you were naive?
Oh, very naive.
What do you want to say to people who are working retail jobs, maybe a job as a barista, a job with the boss, and they really crave doing their own thing, but feel like they don't have the resources or the capacity to actually try? What do you want to tell them?
Well, I think it comes back to what we've been talking about already. Like, do you want to be on your deathbed and go, I wonder if I would have done that or not? What's the point of living a life like that? I'm going to have 2 kids. I'm going to live in suburbia. At 60, I'm going to retire, become a road cyclist, and then I'm going to die. It was great because then I'd lived an entire life. If I would have lived the life I'd already envisioned and then I died, that would be boring.
Wait, Chip, where does this idea of the horror of a kind of basic life come from? I mean, you asked what's the point of that? I mean, I can think of some reasons to do it. Just decency, comfort, family. Spending time with people you love and enjoy, I guess that's a low stakes life, but I don't think it sounds as bad to me. It sounds like it kind of horrifies you.
Well, it
against stocks. Against stocks. But when the Federal Reserve steps into the market, it's taking these safe bonds, making profits on them fall for everyone.
That is going to make it, from the investor perspective, more likely that they are ideally going to be putting their capital to work in ways that support private innovation.
Holding such a large balance sheet of nearly $9 trillion has contributed to this environment where a lot of money's flowing into risk assets, and you've started to see some crazy things. Companies that really don't have much of a business were able to go the IPO route in 2020 and especially in 2021 and raise a lot of money. Those businesses ultimately fail. There's going to be a lot of investors kind of left holding the bag.
Markets have come to rely on the Fed's purchasing patterns.
But by making the Federal Reserve so central in the efforts to get money to companies, in the spring of 2020 and the summer of 2020, we did create an overall environment where we did far more to backstop some really fragile financial intermediaries. So if you were a large company, regardless of whether you were a highly creditworthy or a not so creditworthy large company, your ability to raise money by issuing new debt over the past couple of years has just been astounding.
The central bank took on non-traditional assets, like securitized mortgage loans. To some, this has been controversial.
How many of you people want to pay for your neighbor's mortgage that has an extra bathroom and can't pay their bills? Raise their hand. How about we all? President Obama, are you listening?
The Federal Reserve warned markets that the time had come to wind the balance sheet down. That sent day traders into a panic.
In the next year or sooner, we are going to end quantitative easing. We are going to end bond buying. We are going to end the injection of new reserves that creates the necessary money supply. That ain't bullish for gold. I'm sorry.
The idea that one of the biggest buyers and biggest holders of government debt in particular and mortgage-backed debt would all of a sudden stop being a buyer and potentially start being a seller, that caused investors to freak out. And so they quickly backpedaled from that. And that never really even came to pass for, several years later. They started to slowly let bonds that were maturing roll off the balance sheet.
Over time, emotions calmed and the balance sheet plateaued. Ben Bernanke's plan had proved successful, and stock valuations were at a record high. The central bank started to unwind the balance sheet slowly before warning signs flashed again in 2019. Toward the end of the 2010s, strong market conditions gave the Fed enough confidence to start letting its bonds mature.
They didn't get very far before economic growth really slowed sharply, and they once again had to start cutting interest rates. And that was in the middle of 2019 when unemployment was at a 50-year low and nobody had ever heard of COVID.
The pandemic brought another significant round of bond buying. The Fed again took the safe treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities off the market. They also set up lending facilities to buy bonds from municipalities and corporations.
That was a new thing that the Fed did this time around.
The 2020 bond purchasing program brought investors flooding back into the stock market after a sudden collapse.
Holding such a large balance sheet of nearly $9 trillion has contributed to this environment where a lot of money's flowing into risk assets, and you've started to see some crazy things. Things like cryptocurrency or even NFTs. I think a lot of the fervor for those has been driven by this ultra low rate environment where the pursuit for return meant going into risk assets.
The large cash injections boosted large corporations at the expense of smaller businesses.
The Fed just didn't have the right tools to really help out small businesses. And as we saw with the Main Street lending facility, which was supposed to help out mid-sized businesses, the Fed also didn't really have the right tools to support them. By contrast, the largest companies in our country are much more able to raise funds through mechanisms like issuing debt into public markets. And this has been bought up like crazy by these open-end bond funds and ETFs backed by bonds. And what we don't want is the complex set of machines that is the financial systems to grind to a halt because it lacks the liquidity. You don't want to force a recession as a result of a breakdown in the financial system.
Members of the Federal Reserve contend that these emergency asset purchases are necessary. They believe that the debts will be paid as they mature.
After almost every crisis, there's often a survey, often a commission done or hearing, et cetera, and then Congress decides how to adjust the authorities to help focus on these crises.
The resulting end of our pandemic asset purchases will remove another source of unneeded economic stimulus for the economy. I expect that these steps will contribute to an easing in inflation pressures in the coming months.
Certainly some of these people on the committee are hot to begin reducing this balance sheet.
The Fed plans to unwind its asset portfolio at a more aggressive pace than what it attempted following the housing crash.
We may find for all of us that the price of money, cost of a loan, the interest rate, gradually starts to rise from what has been historically very low levels. I've already seen some of that. Mortgage rates are a little bit higher now than they have been in the past, and also the borrowing rates for corporations are somewhat higher.
The Fed will shrink its bond portfolio by $2 to $3 trillion in this round. Market turbulence could follow the Fed's tightening of the economy, sparking a recession.
Are we going to go back to the Fed having a balance sheet of the size that it was in 2006 and early 2007? There I'm far more skeptical. The role of reserves on bank balance sheets has changed a lot.
It's not fair to say the balance sheet is not supposed to be used the way it's used. It is a new tool. What's new about it is, one, it's being used quite consistently. Two, it's being used at a scale that was not imagined before. But it is very public, but like lots of things in plain sight, you don't necessarily notice it.
Prices for just about everything are rising fast. In October 2021, inflation took its biggest jump in more than 30 years. It's hitting specific parts of the economy hardest. Drivers face a 59% increase at the pump compared to 1 year ago. The average used vehicle is selling for 26% more than it was a year ago. Vacation homes are renting out at a premium too.
Nobody likes inflation. Nobody wants to pay higher prices for anything, really.
Maintaining stable prices is one of the Federal Reserve's main responsibilities. In recent decades, the economy has hummed below the central bank's target rate.
Now, post-pandemic, the Fed, they want inflation, at least for a while, to be above 2%. And they'll get exactly what they want simply because of the acceleration in rent growth.
Critics say there are signs of turmoil in the economy that the Fed isn't hearing.
I think it's pretty darn clear that the Fed cannot control inflation on the downside or the upside, given the current experience.
The central bank has its defenders too.
The weight of the evidence is finally going Powell's way. Team Transitory is going to win.
There's a lot of reasons to think that inflation is transitory. It doesn't mean it's going to be 2 months. It could be a year, but it's not going to be 4 or 5% a year for the next 5 years.
In the backdrop, governments are spending big to keep society afloat. The U.S. Treasury's debt is managed by the Fed. The bank's assets swelled as it printed trillions of dollars to backstop the country, which leads to the question, can the Federal Reserve control inflation? And if so, what could it do to rein in the cost of living in the United States? The people who manage the U.S. economy prefer to keep inflation around 2%. That's because a low and steady rate produces a healthy business environment. These rates are tracked in categories like food, energy, and housing. These components are then weighted against one another to establish their importance. The final scores that are produced are then recorded over time. The primary one you hear about on the news is called the Consumer Price Index. It tracks all of the spending from 93% of the US population. Then there's the trimmed mean inflation, which throws out outlier data and focuses on core prices. Movements in the trimmed mean signal a more potent inflationary trend. Then there's the PCE.
The Fed really prefers to look at PCE, that is Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index.
The Fed's preferred measure of inflation is broader than the trimmed mean, but it throws out some data from the energy and food sectors. That's because prices take bigger swings in these industries more frequently. What's included and what's excluded from each inflation index impacts its reliability. Some, like Danielle DiMartino Booth, a former Dallas Fed employee, believe that the PCE is flawed.
My biggest issue with the PCE is that for your average American household, you spend between 40 and 50% of your income on housing. If you look at it through that simple of a prism and understand that the PCE's input for housing is only around 22%, then you see that you're undercounting households' biggest expense by a wide margin.
In the fall of 2021, the PCE numbers spiked to generational highs. When events like that happen, public officials turn to the Fed for answers. The Federal Reserve was originally set up to create a stable
tried to deposit 2 employees.
Security cabinet on Tuesday to go over his occupation plan.
8月5日、火曜日ということで、今日も戦っていこうと思いますが、147円の戦いを我慢できずにアタックしたら100
you.